All right, welcome back to the Daily Report. Welcome to the marketplace. Tonight, we're going to be looking into taxation. Revenue collection has always been kind of a touchy subject for many Kenyans, including small businesses. Micro, small and medium enterprises make up for more than 85% of businesses in this country of ours, and most of them do not know what tax regime, how much they should be paying. So the government came up with ETIMS, but it seems like ETIMS itself is not working out very well. I'll start with my guests. I have a very fantastic panel here. I have Newton Kamasi, who is a governance expert. I have Julius Miri, who is an advocate of the High Court. And I have Agnes Okumu, an expert and an advocate, a tax expert, and an advocate of the High Court as well. I have two lawyers, so I have to be very careful with what I say. Newton, I'll start with you. Maybe if you could just tell us, of course, ETIMS came with a lot of promises. Going digital, we've embraced it as a country. We've tried to take it upon ourselves, but it's not working very well. What would you say was the government's thought process when they were adopting ETIMS?
First of all, thank you so much for having me here today. I think the weather is good and we're doing well as a country.
Fantastic.
In regards to the tax issues and ETIMS, it's very clear. ETIMS has enabled the transformation in the revenue collection system and sector. But as a country, we have a big chunk of it.
Right. Because
most of our transactions are not formal. Most of our transactions are informal in nature.
Right.
In that we have a 32% coverage on the informal transactions, which are cash transactions basically. Right. And you realize when KRA tried to go and implement the ETIMS to the people, there was a lot of resistance.
Right.
Not because ETIMS is bad, but because ETIMS, as in its own nature, I believe it is not very friendly.
Right.
Because I use it for my business, and it is not very friendly. It is only friendly to the formal sector.
Right.
And you see, Kenya is not a really formal economy. It's mostly informal. And therefore, because of those challenges, that is where you find there's a lot of resistance with ETIMS.
Right.
But we hope that KRA is going to improve on it, because everything starts somewhere and we improve slowly as we move forward.
Right. Julius, I'll come to you now. Legally speaking, the Kenya Revenue Authority did want to be the Kenya Revenue, Service, because they wanted to be kinder to the people, more friendly. People could approach them. They wanted to demystify what revenue collection has been for decades in this country. But they have deadlines, and those deadlines could be very harsh. What would you say about that?
Thank you very much also for having me back. What I would say about the same is we do not have an issue in terms of collecting taxes.
Right.
What we have an issue with is enforcement. You find that whereas there are laws that provide on how taxes should be collected, KRA has been lagging behind in terms of implementation.
Right.
I think the best thing would be to improve the morale of the people and improve the trust. Once there is trust, people will always give taxes.
Right.
Yes.
So it's a matter of building our relationship, the people plus the government. Let's work on our marriage a little bit. Agnes, maybe if you could just tell us, welcome to TV47, the only lady in my panel, and thank you so much for coming. As a tax expert, Miri has said we don't have a problem with collecting tax, or we don't have a problem with getting the revenue. We have a problem with using this revenue, but ETIMS comes in as this monster that people are not adjusting to very well. When March came around, there was the deadline, and only 25% of businesses had, registered on that particular site. What would you say the problem is?
Contrary to my colleague's opinion,
right,
I believe that the ETIMS, the ETIMS system is actually towards improvement of tax collection. One of the challenges that we've had previously, and even is currently still a challenge, is on the issue of tax collection. We have so many taxes provisions that provide for tax collection. Apart from the finance bill that was contentious, there are so many other acts of parliament that actually provide various ways that the government can collect taxes. So the problem is not in the law. The problem is in how the tax is being collected. And the ETIMS has improved tax collection. The challenge is there training, continuous training, awareness of the public. You'll find that most traders, when they are going to purchase goods or to offer services, at that point when they're asked, could you kindly share with us your ETIMS number? That is when someone is like, okay, so there is another system nowadays. So there is that awareness is not there. KRA should actually improve on training the public.
Right. And speaking of that, we did touch base with, Kenyans in Mashinani. We wanted to know your typical business owner there around your home. What do they think about it? Let's get the public's opinion.
Na hii maneno ya ETIMS ambayo imekuwa introduced by the government, na sisi kwa upande wetu inatu affect kwa sababu hatujahamasishwa ama hatujafunzwa kuhusu ETIMS vizuri. Na tungependa kwanza, before implementation ya hii process by the government, tumefunzwa, tupewe civic education, ndiposa tuelewe ambacho serikali inahitaji kutoka kwetu wanabiashara. Kwa sababu sasa tukielezwa tuende kwa cyber, watatueleza cyber wako na cost yao, M-Pesa iko na cost yake, pia ile ETIMS pia wako na cost yao. Sasa hizo pesa zote zinakuwa zinaangukia mfanyabiashara, sasa biashara inaanguka.
All right. I'm already getting reactions from my panel here, but before I even indulge in that, you can send your opinion or your comment on 22047, or you can reach us on our socials at TV47 News, on Facebook at TV47KE, on X, and of course we do have our WhatsApp number, so easy to reach us nowadays. Please do send me your comments. Newton,
yes.
What do you think about what he just said?
What he said is somehow correct, somehow he has some misinformation. Because one thing that we need to note is that ETIMS is free of charge. There's no cost implied on ETIMS, unless you say it is the issue of internet and connectivity. But ETIMS is generally free. And what he has raised is very key and is really concerning. Because the Kenya Revenue Authority is mandated to carry out awareness, as my sister has said. But it is kind of failing, and yet expecting the taxpayer to comply. And you see, what you're struggling with as a country, especially in the tax revenue space, is compliance challenges and the compliance measures that are there. Do we have these structures well put outside there in a way that Kenyans can understand? Because as I said, Kenya is made of a huge informal sector. You see, like the trader you've just aired the views right now. That is not a trader who is formally trading. Because he buys sweets worth 50 shillings. So you want to tell me you will expect that trader to download an ETIMS and send to the person who is selling the sweets. So KRA also needs to come up and improve the system better to tap into the informal sector and make the system more accessible, more interactive, more friendly. Otherwise, if they continue the way they have been doing things, then things are going to be tough and difficult for the common trader.
Miri, the aspect of palatability comes into the question. And I'm glad you raised the fact that there was some misinformation there, but that is what the people think about ETIMS. That is the information that they've gotten. What would you say, Miri, as an advocate of the High Court, how best can you reach the people, considering this is a democracy? At the end of the day, there's nothing by force. How do you think the government or KRA even could be dealing with this situation?
I think today I'm speaking for the government. KRA has really been improving. They have introduced what we call the ETIMS Lite. The ETIMS Lite is where you can use a USSD code. A USSD code. I think that is one of the best improvements that is meant to reach to the lowest trader there at the ground. And I think one of the best things that maybe KRA can do about ETIMS, because when you interact with the people on the ground, most of the people think that ETIMS is actually a type of a tax. So they are afraid to tap into technology. So there is need, as my sister had said, there is need to improve on awareness and tell people what ETIMS is about And then I'm sure people will always tap into it.
Right.
Yes.
Well, I wouldn't say the devil's advocate, but, the semantics. Agnes, maybe if you could just tell us what, the trader just said. There's some misinformation, but there's also a few facts there. You hear about ETIMS, you might have the best, you want to go and register, you want to, comply with what the Kenya Revenue Authority wants you to comply with, but you don't even know what you're doing. How exactly can the Kenya Revenue Authority improve on this?
I've picked a point by the trader, and the trader is saying that I have to go to a cyber to be trained. Now the question is, who trained the cyber person?
Right.
And who gave them the mandate to train members of the public on ETIMS? So there is also a question of accountability. If the trader is given wrong information, like he's saying, he's being told that he will have to pay for the iTax.
Right.
So who takes that? Who takes the fall for that wrong information? Right. So for me, I think KRA should, what they should do is to put, if you look at the way government does things most of the time, if you go to public spaces, you'll find that is a small tent of an institution, a government institution, trying to train the public on what is happening on the ground.
Right.
So KRA should take some of those chances. Even big corporations do that every day.
Right.
Just go down to those people and tell them that this is what is required. It's free information. Just come to the tent, get the information you want, then go and do your other businesses.
Right. Agnes, as a tax expert, right? Of course, ETIMS, once upon a time, was a very novel concept for a lot of us. How did you find it? How did you get this information? Was it easy for you to, digest it and consume it? What do you think the ordinary mwananchi was thinking about when it was first introduced?
On my part, when it was first introduced, there were tutorials, and there are still tutorials on YouTube. So a citizen who is informed would go to YouTube and get the tutorial on how things are done, how to register, how to generate the invoices and all that.
Right.
So it is easier for someone who is more informed, and for me that is what I did, and I got the information and I registered my law firm on ETIMS. So I think also it's about self-initiative, especially for those in the formal sector. Go out there and look for that information. But for those in the informal, KRA needs to go a step higher to give them information.
Right. Before I even move to my other panelists, of course, when you look at the year-on-year revenue collection, there has been a tremendous, improvement. But when you look between the month that, ETIMS was, the deadline was in March, say, and when you look at this particular month, there was a shortfall of around hundreds of millions, if you compare it to other months. Of course, this means that the reception is not that good. VAT is one of the largest, contributors to our revenue collection. There seems to be a problem, but the solution is not coming out. What is the solution?
I believe just with any new system, there is that transition period where you need to move the mass from one system to the next. So when you are moving the mass to the next system, there are many people, people are different. There are those who learn fast, there are those who are slow learners. So it will take time for the public to actually get accustomed to the new system. So I believe the transition is what is causing the downfall in collection of VAT.
Right.
But with the time, new systems should be given time so that people actually interact with them and get to learn how things work.
Right.
Yeah.
Nita, now I must come to you. How much time is enough time?
There's nothing like, one thing I really dislike about KRA. Personally, I registered myself for ETIMS.
Right.
And my question has always been, do we have different regimes with different formulas of collecting revenue?
Right.
Because that is a very critical concern that we need to have. One, we used to pay KRA the revenues. And then we came in, there was iTax. Then iTax was there, it worked, it had challenges. Then someone decided to bring ETIMS from the blues. Now here we have ETIMS. ETIMS will have its own challenges.
Right.
As my friend has said here, there is ETIMS Lite.
Right.
So with time again,
Right.
we'll hear there is easy teams.
Right.
You got me? Different names, but the key goal here is to collect this revenue.
Right.
And I can tell you this, KRA has tried to integrate, or the government is trying to integrate. And remember, the president had promised that all these services will be integrated into one through the eCitizen platform. And eTeams is not an exception.
Right.
But now what happens is, when a small trader like the one you have just aired goes and registers a company through the eCitizen, he automatically gets assigned a KRA pin.
Right.
But when he goes to the eTeam side, that KRA pin is not linked. Those are the challenges I faced personally.
Right.
So when this eTeams is not linked to the KRA pin, this particular trader has to go to their offices to ensure that this is aligned, to be factual, to understand that he can also transact on this other side. And if it happens to be blocked on the eCitizen side, then on this eTeam side, you'll have a lot of challenges.
Right.
Case in scenario, there is a different eTeams for limited company, and there's a different platform for business names. And most of these small scale traders are they register business names,
Right.
not limited companies. And you realize that for this business registration, they are basically confined to eCitizen. But now when you want to move to the limited side, you have to move now to the eTeams platform specifically, which is a bit of a challenge, and there's a lot of integration that needs to be done
Right.
to make the process more smoother, to enable each and everyone
Right.
to be onboarded on it. And again, I'll challenge KRA probably and the government to try see if they can create incentives to attract these particular players in the market, so that as a trader, I know onboarding on this platform, as one of the panelists said, some of them are viewing it as another tax.
Right.
So government should come up with some incentives to ensure that as traders and taxpayers, when they are being onboarded, they know the benefits of being onboarded on this one. And it should be automatic.
Right.
A very good scenario, since the government is trying to automate or to digitize everything. When you get your national ID, you better get your KRA pin
Right.
and get yourself onboarded on the eTeams platform. And I hope and pray that in future we not have another platform. Now that again we have to shift again from this platform to the other platform.
Right.
Let us have the eTeams and let us improve it to make it better and not have some changes here and there. Because everyone comes in, another CS treasurer will come in and say, no, I want to overhaul. You saw the other day when the Cabinet Secretary for Finance was being interviewed. What did he
Right.
say? I want to go and overhaul the Kenya Revenue Authority.
Right.
I don't know if I was wrong.
Seems like that's
That is
always
what
a
he
source
said.
for.
Exactly. So they want to go and close loopholes where this other person was eating. It is like a eating cow, a
Right.
cash cow. So someone decides, I will change the system for me. So we need to have a country and a Kenya Revenue Authority that is service oriented and is independent
Right.
of all these political players.
Right.
Yeah.
Newton, let me throw another spanner in the works, right? You have said that each cabinet secretary comes with their own new regime and everyone wants to see loopholes, but whatever scheme they come with has even more loopholes. When eTeams came about, there were, of course, questions and speculations on how much the government is spending on this particular site, and having this, new system in place. But also there came in the factor of budgeted corruption. Do you believe that eTeams has also been used to eat, for lack of a better word?
I am really looking forward to that day.
Right.
As a Kenyan citizen. I will sit and say there is no budgeted corruption.
Right.
I really long for that day to come. But in all these sectors, and that brings me to a different angle of the question you've asked. You see, in this country, we normally audit expenses only.
Right.
No one has ever told us that Kenya Revenue Authority, we just get figures. We are told, Kenya Revenue Authority comes today and tells us we collected 1.3 trillion. We collected 2 trillion. Who has ever audited the revenues instead of auditing the expenses all the time?
Right.
Because the moment we audit the revenues, that these incomes that come to the government, you realize KRA is the collecting agency for all government taxes or all government revenues. But we have not had the auditors telling us that, hey, this year we collected 3 trillion.
Right.
This 3 trillion came from this sector, this sector, this sector, and did that money hit the account as required? Because that is where the gap comes in. That is where the budgetary corruption lies.
Right.
We don't audit the revenues, we only audit the expenses. And these expenses, when they are audited, we just hear projects were done. You know, there's a gentleman called Morara.
Right.
He's doing a very good job.
Right.
But one thing he's not doing,
Right.
and I wish that he could listen very keenly, is that as much as he's trying to paint the government of the day bad, he should note that these projects are awarded to companies and particular companies or business people. You know, in this country, we are very shrewd business people. And Kenyans, we are our own enemies. These contractors who have been given those jobs or those tenders to do those particular projects that Morara is highlighting. The only challenge I have with him is in every project, he just highlights and names the president.
Right.
That one I disagree with him because everything is not about the president.
Right.
Don't create issues around the presidency, but go there and be factual. Say, there is this project. It was awarded to Morara Company or Morara Home Furnitures.
Right.
And Morara Home Furniture failed to deliver. So who is supposed to be held accountable? Morara Home Furnitures.
Right.
Not the president. Because everything he says is the president.
Right.
The president. The president. But in the real sense, we need to address the problem. The problem is not the presidency. The problem is the shrewd business people who get awarded these tenders and they don't do these tenders. And we need to make them public.
Right. Newton there with quite the spicy and steamy sentiments. Now, Julius, I must ask you this. He has talked about, shrewd business people who come in and take tenders. And he has also highlighted that maybe it's important to audit our revenue collection as well, where it's coming from, how much was collected, how much was expected as well. Do you believe that this could be achieved, or is it just another pipe dream?
I believe that is something that is achievable. We have a constitutional office that is supposed to be carrying out audits, the Office of the Auditor General. It is the office that is mandated to be carrying out audits in terms of expenditures, expenses, and what we are collecting. Whatever my colleague has said is true. There are sometimes that the Auditor General misses to tell us 2.4 billion was collected or 2.2 trillion was collected. Much of this amount came from the informal sector, this amount came from this sector, and what have you. So I believe it's a very important thing in terms of, as much as accountability is concerned.
Right. Now, the Kenya Revenue Authority does specify, different, if it's from, VAT or if it's from income tax. However, do you believe that this could be expanded a little bit further if the Auditor General fixes, if the Office of the Auditor General fixes their magnifying glass on the Kenya Revenue Authority? Do you believe that this could, help with accountability even?
Yes, I believe it will go very far in terms of even integrity, in terms of trust. The trust will improve from the people in terms of how much we bring to the government and how much is coming back to us in terms now of services.
Right.
Yes.
And when it comes to, the Kenya Revenue Authority and its image to the people, they wanted to be the Kenya Revenue Service. They wanted to be more friendly to the people. Do you believe that this is, if you look at when you go back home, is this a sentiment that people usually share?
Yes, I believe so, because when you're told an authority is coming after you, you become fearful, as opposed to a service. A service where they will come and tell you, you owe us this amount of money.
Right.
You're supposed to pay us before this date. And I believe as a service that would improve even in terms of revenue collection and the interaction between the KRA now and the people.
Right. Agnes, I come to you, our tax expert. Now, a few months ago when, the finance bill topic was very hot, there was one clause that, grabbed the attention of a lot of small businesses, and this was the lack of compliance to ETIMS, and there was a hefty fine of 2 million shillings. And we find that a lot of micro, small and medium enterprises make 1 million Kenyan shillings per year? So it's not even practical. What do you believe, or how do you believe this even taints the image of the Kenya Revenue Authority for a lot of MSMEs?
I believe that those are some of the grounds that led to the Finance Act being withdrawn from the public. And also it is still the same issues that are being contested even in court currently.
Right.
You find that when these are issues of high fines for default are brought in, you find that most of these these sections are brought in after the act has undergone public participation, the first reading, second and third. So you find something will be included. So if you are not very keen,
Right.
you'll find the act has been published, but there is something that did not go through the public, because at the stage of public participation, that is where people need to raise these issues, that the fine that you are charging here is too much, kindly reduce it, so that those things are considered. Otherwise, if Kenyans don't participate in these public participations, they see the notices, they ignore, you'll find that many things will pass, and then we'll meet it at the end during implementation. Then we start going back.
And many would say, arguably, that public participation doesn't necessarily work and people have to rally on the streets. How best do you believe that the government could be handling this? But before you even touch on that question, let's take a short breather. When we come back, we'll be discussing that, and we will be even delving into possible, adjustments to current tax acts that we already have. Don't go too far.